Hello, and welcome back to the White Pew podcast. I am ZM, and it is Sunday, the 31st of May, 2026. For those that don't know, the White Pube is a website that I run with my friend and collaborator, Gabriel de la Puente. Gab is based in Liverpool. I am based in London, and between these two cities, we take turns to publish texts about art, exhibitions, books, films, music, whatever takes our fancy on any given Sunday. We put the text version of those texts on whitepube.com or .co.uk, and this podcast feed is where we put the audio versions of those texts, so you can listen to us, the writers, read our own words in our own voices, if that is your format of preference. And I'll read the text in a bit, but stay tuned till the end, and then I'll give you an emoji to comment on the Instagram post about this text, which is, I say it's a game, but it's literally just a game for me and Gab so that we can feel that we're not, like, we can kind of get a sense for who's on the other end of these things, so we don't just feel like we're throwing the words into the void. But okay, I'll read the text. This is a review. Oh, by the way, I should tell you what it's a review of. A play called Farm Fatale that was on at the Southbank Centre. Okay, I'll read the text now. Stay tuned for the emoji. I was on my way to the Southbank Centre to see a play. It was last weekend, precisely the Saturday. Tommy Robinson's fanboys were clogging up the Zone 1 pubs, St George's flag tied around their necks like capes, all the way from Embankment across the river, Union Jack St George, Union Jack St George, tourist or fascist or Y2K Britpop revival, spin the wheel. I was there to see a play called Farm Fatale. A group of scarecrows in a field after the climate collapse, after all the birds have fled or died. They jiggle around on stage and tell us about the farms and farmers that made them. They tell us that they now run a scarecrow radio show. They play music, they're in a band, and birdsong, because they miss the birds, and they interview the last bee in Europe. Then a giant egg plops out the back of an enormous furry mass. They show us the barn that they keep more of these giant eggs in. They spray the eggs with fine mist. The eggs glow. They serenade the eggs. They spy a farmer on the horizon, their next door neighbour. He is an industrial farmer. They hate him. They could kill him. But they don't. They just scare him with the power of art. I leave the theatre to look out at the river and think about how I have no idea what that play was really about. No clue what happened. Did anything happen? An egg was plopped out into the world, a bee was interviewed, the radio station continued to broadcast. My boyfriend booked the tickets and he tells me that he thought I would like it so much I would review it. It was a match with my taste profile. Physical comedy, absurdist, surreal, a pocket of time in a mad speculative future that may or may not actually come about. But I dither. I tell him that I wasn't sure if anything actually happened. The story was kind of anticlimactic. There was no big blowout ending. They didn't kill the next door farmer. They scared him away with the power of art, and when they voiced this plan, I laughed out loud because I thought they were joking. Narratively, not morally, murder is absolute, fixed, certain. The power of art is vague, undetermined, impermanent, and unpredictable. I don't think of myself as a traditionalist, but when it comes to narrative structures, I guess I am. I want a satisfying climax, a hero, an antagonist. I want a 5-act arc that ends in resolution. Last Saturday on the South Bank, looking out over the river and the sea of flags, what I wanted was certainty. On our way out, my boyfriend tells me that Ethiopian music is modal. It uses a unique pentatonic modal system. You group different notes into relation and ascend, descend, scaling like a ladder or bouncing between. It's not necessarily about moving through different chord progressions. It is about relation. You stay within one chord system and move around in it. There isn't movement. A line travelling from C to E to G. There is a stillness. But that's not to say that nothing happens. As you bounce, you create new relations. Maybe then it becomes about the intervals, the space between the notes rather than the notes as fixed places. Maybe in this modal mode, you don't have to find resolution. We come in and go out without fanfare, and you can just keep going forever and ever and ever. I tell him about Ursula Le Guin's essay, A Carrier Bag Theory of Fiction. Joseph Campbell's monomyth would have us believe that all stories must follow the same pattern. The hero's journey. The hero goes out into the woods, the unknown, to find the Holy Grail, whatever that might mean. He struggles, he fights, he conquers, he triumphs, he returns home forever changed by his journey. The story is linear movement, out and in, and it is propelled forward by conflict. We, human hunter-gatherers, understand our history, origin, and purpose through a particular lens that favours the grand sweep of this narrative arc. Violence, murder, conflict. We are biologically primed to go out, find mammoth, kill mammoth, bring mammoth home, and eat mammoth, forever changed by the satisfaction of red meat. The shape of the hero's journey is satisfying because it mirrors the shape of human existence, all the course of human civilization, violence, murder, conflict. Ursula Le Guin says, well, actually, no, lol. The first human tool or technology was not a weapon, not a spear, a knife, a blade, or a club. It was a container, a sling, a carrier, a bag. Fuck that caveman origin story. That's capitalism or colonialism or both. The myth of infinite perfect progress. Man conquers Earth, space, new markets, death. The future changes the world and remakes it in his image. The narrative spear, or times-killing arrow mode of the techno-heroic. If we subscribe to the carrier bag theory, we are made to go out into the forest and find berries and nuts, put them in our bag, jostle them around and bring them home. The scale is not as grand, but in the bag, maybe these berries and nuts bump up against each other. Maybe they change each other. Maybe while bouncing around against each other, in the bag, the berries and nuts are brought into relation, and that relation makes possibilities that wouldn't occur to us. Maybe the novel and human history is best understood as a practice of finding or facilitating possibility. A container rather than a line, a person rather than a hero. And the point of possibility is that it opens things up, rather than resolving it and closing it down. Come in and go out with no fanfare, jostling in the bag forever and ever and ever. We talk and we move in a line out, on the riverbank, in the bar, on the platform of the tube station. Out the corner of my eye, I see a sticker on the tube sign. A St George's flag, but reformed turquoise blue, and the words, "Make Britain Great Again." I scratch it off with my fingernails and my keys, and I think about the country and how I never really think about the country except when I am allowing myself to catastrophize. I think about how the news is linear but not progressive, a narrative propelled forwards by conflict, time's killing arrow mode of the techno-pathetic. There is no beginning and no end, no resolution, only the jostling of items that never really come into relation and therefore never make possibilities, only potential disasters that unfold around us in slow-mo. And the disasters are genuinely endless. Everything is bonkers and precarious. The government, the economy, human existence on Earth. Maybe the news is the only truly groundbreaking narrative form. But heroic resolution and our desire for it still exists. Elon Musk wants to race to Mars or the stars. We think cavemen were running around taking lumps out of each other with big mammoth bone clubs. We want to affirm to ourselves and others that we are the hero of, maybe not the singular global, but at least our own story. Stories are meant to help us make sense of things that defy sense-making. Of course we want resolution. A 5-act narrative, a small red man saying Muslims are ruining the country, knowing what's best for the country, full stop. Resolution is a kind of answer, and deep down, we all expect things to make sense eventually. So then, on the district line, what does it mean to refuse resolution? If you take something like scarecrows' civilization after the climate collapse and present it to us in this non-linear modal way, in and out with no fanfare, no hero, no beginning, and no real end. What am I meant to do with that? How am I meant to make sense of it? My boyfriend looks at me and says, "You know there was no bee. There was no next door farmer." I blink at him, confused. The bee they interviewed didn't exist. The evil farmer next door and the farm itself didn't exist. It's all after the climate crisis collapsed into an apocalypse. Nothing is alive. The scarecrows are playing or pretending. My eyes finally glaze over and I retreat to an inner world, the place I go to make sense of things. Because I want resolution. I want the 5-act structure. I want sense to be found or made. I have expectations of stories, and my expectation is that there is meaning or purpose or something like resolution at the end of it. Spear or carrier bag. If possibility is opened up, I still expect it to lead somewhere. I guess I also expect that somewhere to be a finite, resolved endpoint. But if my boyfriend is right and those scarecrows were going mad in their field, pretending to interview a made up bee for a radio program, broadcasting to no one, because there are no bees left, because all the bees and all the potential listeners died, then there is no fixed idea of sense or meaning or resolution or possibilities, no stake for these things to be found. I expect art and culture to provide me with meaning, resolution, or possibilities because the real world is so empty of those things. If my boyfriend's plot twist is right, then Farm Fatale was too much like reality for me to feel satisfied, but my own lack of satisfaction is so interesting to me. I can say all these things in a neutral way, modal music and carrier bag fictions, no fixed places like beginnings or endings and no fanfare between. Of course, fascism is appealing. It rises up in times of bonkers precarity and plays on our desire for resolution, certainty, and meaning. We desire those things because they make us feel like there might actually be an end point to all of this. But if my boyfriend is right and those scarecrows are still playing around with pretending, bouncing around and relating and still making possibilities, even though there's no point, no beginning, no end, and no audience to witness it all, then what are we meant to make of that? Is it even possible to purge yourself of that desire for certainty? Recalibrate yourself so you expect and are satisfied by a modal mode? Is that optimism? Or is that the bleakest thing you've ever heard? And that is the text. Um, I honestly am still thinking about this. I've been writing this up until like this morning, and I keep actually hilariously maybe in keeping with this text, but and the ideas that are like being chewed on throughout. I keep expecting myself to kind of come to some final thought where I'm like, that's my takeaway. That's my answer. That's my resolution. But I don't know if I have one or if it's ever gonna land. And as I'm voicing it aloud, I'm like, oh, yeah, there we go. But I think maybe it's something about like, maybe this is what being a critic for 10 years has done to my brain chemistry. And I'm like, no, no, there's an answer at the end. There's a takeaway. There's something I can understand. There's a meaning I can pass from all of the things that are out there in the world. And it's just a matter of how I get to it, right? Like, I've just got to keep going until I find that. And yeah, it was interesting and surprising to encounter something where I was like, "Oh, this completely defies any attempt I might have possibly made at taking away something that feels as solid as an understanding." I'm not gonna add that into the text, but I think that's what I'll caveat the end of this text with. And then for my emoji, please can I have, um okay, I'm gonna go left field. Please, can I just have like any red emoji? Because it is Sunday, which is, yeah, the day that we publish the text, but it's also Arsenal parade day. And yes, the Champions League final last night was very upsetting, but it's still parade day, still won the Prem. So can I have, I'll leave it up to your discretion. any red emoji. Thank you. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's gonna be the emotion. I'm like second guessing myself, but no, that was my knee-jerk impulse. I'm gonna stick with it. All right. Thank you very much for listening, and I will catch you next time. Bye.